Bonjour, Kinamagi Nene Ireland Indigenikas, and welcome to today's episode of Social Studies Explorer. Today's episode, all in a day's work. Today we continue our exploration of the executive branch, and we'll be looking at the job of the president. The coolest job in the country. Imagine you have been elected president of the United States. What do you think would be the best part of the job? Having your own personal jet, living in the White House, having a bowling alley in your house? Yes, there's a one-lane bowling alley in the basement of the White House. Being president is not just fun and games. You have real responsibilities. Below is a list of things you would do as president of the United States. Which do you think would be the hardest to do? Which do you think would be the easiest? So our first task today with this packet is I want you to list from 1, the hardest in this group, to 3, the easiest. You'll use your own judgment. There is no Google form for it. It's for you. You should pause the video while filling out those 3 task lists and unpause when you're ready. You may pause the video now. Welcome back. I'm curious to see what you shared as the most difficult, and you're welcome to share that with me on your own fruition. The President's Rulebook. The President of the United States is the leader of our nation and the leader of the executive branch of government. The Constitution of the United States gives all the rules for being president, tells who can become president, what powers the president has, and some of the roles and duties the president takes on. You can read it here. You know, so it's Article 2 is the presidency, and here's Section 1. And just highlighting so you can read on your own. Here's about the oath of or affirmation. The Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and the militia of the several states when called up to help the federal government. You may ask for written opinions from the executive departments. He can grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. He shall have the power, by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, to make treaties, provide 2/3 of the senators present occur, and he shall nominate, with the advice and consent, ambassadors, public ministers, and consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers. So in this section, we talk about he can lean on his executive branch. He does have the power, or she, to grant reprieves and pardons. And that's pretty common that at the end of a term, a president, an outgoing president particularly, will pardon a number of people for whatever reason. The president can make treaties, although it has to be approved by the Senate. You can appoint a number of officials. So if you think back at the beginning of the most recent term, we had lots of nominees for this office or that office. So the Senate does have a vote on these. He will give to Congress information of the State of the Union. That's your State of the Union address. And considering such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. He shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. In some ways, the president is, as head of the executive branch, that's the enforcement of the law section. Legislators write the law, judicial interpret the law, the executive enforces it. In here from Article 1, Section 7, it has to do with the president signing a building income law or vetoing it. One of the president's most important functions is not in Article 2. It's in Article 1, which talks about Congress. The Constitution can be sneaky that way. Congress is the lawmaking branch of government, but the Constitution requires the president's approval before a bill can actually become law. The president either signs the bill to approve it or rejects the bill with a veto and sends it back to Congress. So we now know that uh, a little bit about what the president does, but what about the second in command, the vice president? And you can see that this has been updated with current Vice President Kamala Harris and down here, current President Joseph Biden. The Constitution of the United States gives the president a helper, the vice president. However, the Constitution doesn't say much about what the vice president does, except that the VP is also the president of the Senate, one of the two lawmaking chambers in Congress. But the VP only presides over the Senate to cast a tie-breaking vote or when there is a ceremony. The rest of the time, the vice president advises the president, travels the world negotiating with other countries, helps carry out laws here at home, and is important to many functions in the executive branch. So, in essence, outside of being president of the Senate, the role of the vice president can differ between administration to administration. Interesting little tidbit at the beginning of our country, the person who finished second in the Electoral College became the vice president, but that didn't last for long. Political party leaders. The president and vice president act as the leaders of their political party. This role is not part of the Constitution, but has evolved over time as part of the political process. A political party is an organized group of people who share similar views and work to influence the government in support of those views. As party leaders, the president and vice president work to accomplish the party's goals for how the government should address the issues facing our nation. The Republican and Democratic parties are the two major political parties in the United States, although there are others. Becoming president. In the United States, presidential elections happen every 4 years. A president cannot serve more than 2 4-year terms, total of 8 years. This rule is found in the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution, which was added in 1951. If a president has only served one term and wants to be reelected, that president ends up spending a lot of time campaigning during the last year of the term. President has already served a second term. Often the vice president will decide to become a presidential candidate. Many presidents started out as vice president. There is let's see if this is mentioned down here. There is a little asterisk to that. If you were vice president in the last 2 years of the presidential term, and that president leaves office either by resigning or dying, you could fill the remainder of that term plus serve 2 more terms. So technically, you can get up to about 9 years and 364 days, 365 if there's a leap year. What if the president dies? There have been several times in the history of the United States when a president has died. When that happens, the Constitution provides that the vice president become president. It also gives Congress the power to make a law saying who becomes president if something happened to both president and the vice president. Congress did this in the Presidential Succession Act, which puts the Speaker of the House, the leader of the House of Representatives, next in line after the vice president, and lists everyone who is in line after that. So you see the vice president is first, then the Speaker, and then President pro tem of the Senate, then the Secretary of State, Treasury, Defense, Attorney General, and then it does list more. At this point, we have never gotten past number 1 on this list, which is a good thing. But if aliens come and kidnap the president, vice president, speaker, and president pro tem of the Senate, at least we know the Secretary of State's next. To conclude today, you do have a matching activity. This should be done most easily on paper copy, although there will be some sort of Google form, most likely. Let's see if we can create that for you. Actually, what I'm going to ask you to do, if you're at home, is write 1 and A as part of in the Google form. So I'll just copy and paste these sections here. You'll then write 1A, 2's, D, 3E down to 14, and then I'll check it out for you. If you have any questions, please reach out to me at mireland@sagchipschool.net. Otherwise, have a minogisigat, minwa, pamapi.